Do, 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 do. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, elected with only 18% of possible votes, is on his media tour for "If you don't benefit me, I don't care about you." He had some rather, appalling things to say at his latest stop in Hamilton about the park encampments.
Do you have any suggestions on what the city should be doing, and can the province help in any way?
Well, great question. First of all, we've given Hamilton over $27 million for shelters, and you have to look at the communities around there. You know, the families and the kids that go to these parks, you can't have encampments there. You just can't. They have to move on.
Where the f are they supposed to go? I'll get back to that in a moment.
But we're putting $27 million towards that. But we can't have these people going in and taking over communities, taking over parks. All you have to do is go into that community, start door knocking around there, and ask them if they want these folks living in their parks where their kids go and play. The answer is overwhelmingly no, they don't.
Of course they don't. I don't want people to have no other choice than to live in a park. But you see, the way he phrased the hypothetical question goes to show how heartless he is. It would be like asking, "Don't you wish you had more room?" when on a dangerously overcrowded life raft. Of course people would say yes, if they didn't understand the only way that could happen would be to push people off. Doug thinks that's a perfectly fine way of phrasing the question because to him, some people are expendable. He doesn't care what happens to them once you throw them overboard. He would use people saying yes to that very vague question as justification for his actions. However, the way a person with compassion would pose these hypothetical questions would be to ask, "Don't you wish there were more life rafts so that everyone has more room?" I'm pretty sure that if I went knocking on those doors and asked, "Do you want the people in the parks to get the supports they need to move out of the parks and into safe housing?" they would say yes.
Where could these folks go, do you think?
Well, again, we've given $27 million to the city for shelters, and we're going to work with them hand in hand.
Doug says this like he thinks people should be impressed with how generous he's being. To the province, $27 million is pocket change. Converted down to average person money, that wouldn't even be enough to buy everything off of my wish list. I have a wish list linked in the description box below. On it are items that will help build my studio and art supplies. If you have a little extra pocket change lying around and can help me out with it, I'd greatly appreciate it. You see, this is just my cheeky way of adding the plug in here. To give this some perspective, 2 long-term care operators got $157 million in COVID-19 aid. They also paid $74 million to shareholders. 2 of the largest long-term care providers in the Toronto area have received more than $157 million in federal and provincial COVID-19 relief, while also paying out tens of millions of dollars in dividends to their shareholders. Meanwhile, more than 480 residents and staff have died of COVID-19 at the company's care homes in Ontario. Audit finds Ontario failed to track $4.4 billion in COVID-19 pandemic relief spending. Ford government sent almost $1 billion to businesses not eligible for COVID-19 aid or which lost less money than they were given, Auditor General finds. Ford government allocating $21 billion less to fund health care, hospital capacity to shrink. Billions of dollars were purposely unspent for needed programs so that they fall apart. Billions go to line the pockets of greedy CEOs and shareholders, and billions just go unaccounted for. The lives of everyone in the province would drastically improve if the money was spent appropriately. $27 million doesn't come close to solving the housing crisis that was intentionally created to benefit the 1%. The province has the money to do what is needed. Doug is choosing not to help.
But they're going to have to find the same location where these people live in the winter when they aren't in the parks as they do in the summer.
Where do you think that is, Doug? Huh? Where? This isn't some mystery migration, okay? People aren't monarch butterflies. What happens is, more shelter spaces are open for the winter, and people have no choice but to go to them, even if the shelters aren't a safe space for them. Also, some encampments don't go away over the winter. The one in my city was there all winter long in the freezing temperatures because there isn't adequate shelter space available. And you see fewer people in the winter because many of them end up in the hospital with frostbite or illnesses. The other place people go in the winter is the grave. People die every year in the winter because there's nowhere safe for them to go. They freeze to death in the streets. If people aren't sure why shelter spaces aren't the solution, I go over it in more detail in my video, Should 10 Encampments Be Allowed? Doug is a sack of wet soiled cat litter trying to convince people he smells like success and therefore knows what's best for them. He's a privileged 1%er who's only ever been interested in helping himself and his rich buddies. He doesn't care about the struggles average people face, and he doesn't care to learn. People have died because of his policies, his backroom dealings, and from his lack of compassion. He's not interested in solving the problem because to him, unhoused people having nowhere to go and dying isn't a problem. After the former mayor of Toronto, John Tory, who definitely isn't a vampire as proven by the lack of reaction to the silver spoon shoved up his ass, stepped down for reasons I touched on in this video, an election was held to fill his position. Olivia Chow was elected as mayor of Toronto a couple days ago, much to Doug's dismay and envy. To all the people pointing out, well, she's the wife of the late Jack Layton, as if to imply that's how she got her job, her connection to an influential politician is not the same as how Doug and Justin's connections influence their success. Olivia was involved with politics before she met Jack. She worked hard, and her experiences and perspective she brings to the table are needed. Her background is of struggle and helping those who struggle. She earned the right to be mayor of Toronto. So to all of the misogynistic ding-dongs out there who seem to think otherwise, STFU, merci beaucoup. David Doel of the Rational National covered her win in a video I've linked below. Luckily, he found and made clips that are useful for my video, so I clipped them. Kind of like a clip inception. But still, go check out his video, it's great.
In Chow's speech, her victory speech, she made a very interesting remark about her upbringing, and I think this is worth noting.
I immigrated here when I was 13 to this place of hope where my family found an affordable apartment in St. Jamestown. My father had mental illness and could not work, but my mother was able to pay the rent and put food on the table. With one single income as a hotel maid. Toronto was a place where I could later afford my own apartment after university.
Olivia Chow's mother was able to raise a family on a single income as a hotel maid in Toronto. The idea of that now is completely insane.
You know, it wouldn't actually surprise me in the least if most politicians are so out of touch, they don't realize it's not like that anymore. That a person can't just get a job and be able to afford housing, food, and all the things needed for a good quality of life. But why is that? Back to David.
And of course, rents are also terrible. Rents are up across Canada as demand has outpaced supply, rising 10.8% to $2,004 in March, according to rentals.ca. In Toronto, average rents are even higher, with a one-bedroom going for $2,500 a month, a 22.2% increase from last year. And it's actually gotten worse. GTA rents hit record $3,000 a month, creating a very alarming situation, as the Star writes here. And this is for purpose-built apartments. $3,000 on average a month.
Granted, the 3,000 is for Toronto, and Doug was talking about Hamilton. Year over year, the average monthly rent for a one-bedroom in Hamilton was up 20.1% and up 15.8% for a two-bedroom. Let's take a quick peek at the National Rent Report. So here we have the average rents for apartments across the country. Vancouver is the most expensive city to live in, followed by Toronto. And we have to go all the way down here to number 19 for Hamilton, which is 1,877 for a one bedroom and 2,310 for a two bedroom, which is way too much. Okay, all of these are way too much for rent. You have to go all the way down here to Red Deer. And hypothetically, if Red Deer was in Ontario, that is the first one that doesn't cost the entirety of an ODSP payment. Okay, all of these up here cost far more than what somebody with disabilities is given to survive on for the entire month to cover everything. It's like this one here is twice as much as what somebody with ODSP is expected to live off of. Many of these cities are in Ontario. How is this okay? Oh, like this just isn't okay. None of this is okay. So Doug thinks people in encampments can just get a job if they want a better life. You mean like he did? Doug being born into wealth, and unlike Olivia, all of his jobs were handed to him on a silver platter. Doug feels the reason people don't get jobs is because they're lazy or they don't want to work, which means they deserve nothing and should suffer so bad they're forced to move or get a job that is harmful for their well-being or die. Meanwhile, Doug sits at his cabin enjoying plenty of time off of work. If he had to work half as hard as the people he complains about, he'd become a socialist faster than the time it takes for him to table a bill denying working people their right to strike. Here's the thing. Wages haven't kept up to the cost of living, not even close. It's impossible for a single parent to earn enough for their family working minimum wage jobs. People are forced to work multiple jobs or split costs by moving more people into smaller spaces. People work longer, harder, and receive less, but they have no choice because the alternative is ending up unhoused. Once a person is unhoused, getting out of that situation is like trying to swim out of a whirlpool with a rock tied around their ankle. Their only hope is if someone throws them a lifeline. Just get a job. Like it's that simple. After all, there's so many jobs out there. No one will hire them. How are they supposed to get a job when they can't show up to a job interview in nice clothes, when they don't have an address they can put on a resume, when they don't have a place to go to get clean or proper rest? Most jobs require you apply online. What if they can't? What if, like me, they don't have a college diploma, so the program then filters out their resume before human eyes ever sees it? What if they don't have access to a computer or a printer? Maybe they're just no good at writing a resume. A lot of min-wage jobs require you to have money to start. You need to pay for a uniform, for equipment, for certification. How are they supposed to get to their job? If the job is near a transit line, then they stand a chance if they can afford transit. Most unhoused people can't get the medical care and mental health supports they need, or they have a disability that prevents them from working. When you're unhoused, the housing allowance part of OW and ODSP are taken away, giving people even less to survive with. Sure, Bill C-22 has passed, promising people with disabilities enough to get by. In another 18 months, maybe. I may just be cynical in my opinion of what our governments are willing to do, but I'll believe it after people start receiving money. I have no doubt they'll find as many ways as possible to deny people or cut what they get. And how many people will die on the streets over the next 18 months waiting for this to happen? How is a person supposed to save up first and last month's rent like this? How many landlords are willing to rent to somebody with a disability or who is currently unhoused? Even if you overcome all of this, minimum wage jobs aren't enough to cover the basics and are unstable. CEOs look for every possible way to pay people less and cut costs by cutting jobs. The system, as designed, leaves very few options for people, which means the only way to get people out of the park is by throwing them overboard. There is one solution that can be done which would get people out of the parks and back on their feet. Housing first initiatives. Socialized housing programs. Hey Doug, if you think unhoused people are so employable, the next time there's a job opening in your company or in your office, I challenge you to go down to the encampment and hire someone from there. The sad thing is, a lot of people there would probably do a better job at running the province than you are. Part of the job of the premiers to help cities with their unhoused folks is to help people who are unable to work, is to make sure people receive the medical and mental health care they need. If you don't want to do your job and would rather brush people aside, you need to STFU, merci beaucoup, and quit. Au revoir. And to all of you new Orca fans out there, I just want to remind you, the bees. They were already working on taking down the ruling class.
Not coming from the government per se, but the premier. It's coming from the health sector. Holy Christ! I just swallowed a bee. Holy Christ! I just swallowed a bee. Health sector.
Rest in peace, little comrade. Your sacrifice will always be remembered. Don't forget to hit buttons and leave comments. If you want more of me, follow me on all of these different platforms. I'm an artist. It's a new thing I'm working on. Go to sandylovis.com to see what I have to offer. If you can, please support my content by becoming a patron or purchasing something off my wish list. That thing I mentioned earlier. Every little bit helps. Links are in the description box below. A special thanks to those of you who already have. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.